The bustling Dubai International Airport hummed with activity as travelers rushed to their gates. Among them walked Alexandra Chen, though most people who knew her called her Alex. Unlike the other passengers in business attire or comfortable travel clothes, Alex carried herself with a particular confidence that came from years of making tough decisions. No one around her would have guessed she was the CEO of Skylink Airways, the very airline she was about to fly with today. Alex had purposely dressed down in simple jeans, a navy blazer, and minimal jewelry. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail instead of her usual professional styling, seen in company photos and business magazines. Just another Tuesday, she muttered to herself, checking the boarding pass on her phone. Flight SL447 Dubai to London Heathrow, first class seat 3A. But this wasn't just another flight for Alex. This was her secret mission. 3 months ago, complaints about Skylink's premium service had increased by 30%. Customer satisfaction scores had dropped, and several high-profile clients had switched to competitor airlines. The board was getting nervous and Alex needed answers. I need to see it with my own eyes, she had told her assistant Priya last week. Book me as Alex Chen, not Alexandra. No special treatment, no alerts to the crew. I want the real experience, Priya had looked concerned. But what if something goes wrong? Alex had smiled. Then I'll know exactly what needs fixing. Now, as she approached gate C42, Alex observed everything with a critical eye. The gate area was clean but crowded. The digital display showed an on-time departure, which was good. Skylink prided itself on punctuality. 2 gate agents were processing boarding, both wearing the company's signature blue uniforms with gold accents. One looked tired, her smile forced as she scanned boarding passes. The other was more energetic, chatting briefly with each passenger. Alex pulled her small carry-on behind her and joined the priority boarding line. She'd booked herself in first class not just for the experience, but because those passengers typically received the most attentive service that had apparently been slipping. Lately? Good morning, said the more energetic gate agent, Ryan according to his name tag. Boarding pass, please? Alex held up her phone with the QR code displayed. Ryan scanned it efficiently. Thank you, Ms. Chen. Enjoy your flight to London today. Boarding through the left door and you'll find your seat in the first-class cabin just ahead. Alex noted his professional demeanor with approval. First impression, positive. The jet bridge was cool compared to Dubai's morning heat. Alex took a deep breath as she approached the aircraft door, mentally switching from CEO to secret shopper. This was her airline, her vision, but today she was just a passenger with high expectations. Welcome aboard, greeted a flight attendant named Sophia. Her smile seemed genuine, but Alex noticed she was holding a clipboard and not making eye contact while speaking. Instead, she was checking something off a list. Small detail, but not the personalized greeting Skylink's training manual specified. Alex nodded politely and turned left into the first-class cabin. The familiar space looked different from this perspective. The cabin had been redesigned just 6 months ago with wider seats, increased privacy, and a warmer color scheme. 10 pod-style seats were arranged in a 1-2-1 configuration, giving everyone direct aisle access. The morning light streamed through several open window shades, highlighting the cream and blue interior. May I help you find your seat? Asked another flight attendant who appeared at Alex's side. This one was Thomas, based on his name tag. He looked to be in his mid-30s with a neatly trimmed beard and alert eyes. Alex had reviewed the new hire reports last month but didn't recognize him. He must have been hired during the recent expansion. I'm in 3A, thanks, Alex replied, watching his reaction carefully. Right this way, Thomas said with a professional nod, leading her to her window seat, although it was only a few steps away. May I take your jacket? Alex slipped off her blazer and handed it to him. Thomas hung it carefully in the small closet near her seat. Would you like a pre-departure beverage? We have champagne, orange juice, or water. Champagne would be lovely, Alex replied, settling into her seat and noting that Thomas didn't mention her by name, despite having surely seen it when he checked her seat number. Another small miss in the service protocol. As Thomas moved away to get her drink, Alex discreetly began her assessment. The seat showed minor wear at the armrests, nothing major but noticeable to her trained eye. The entertainment screen had a small smudge in one corner. The amenity kit was properly placed, but when she opened it, she found the moisturizer was missing. 3 small issues already, and she hadn't even taken off. Around her, the cabin filled with the other first-class passengers. A businessman with a power suit and perpetual frown took 1A. An older couple, possibly on vacation judging by their casual but expensive clothing, settled into the center seats across from Alex. A young woman who looked like a social media influencer positioned herself in 4A, immediately taking selfies with her pre-departure champagne. Thomas returned with Alex's drink on a small silver tray, complete with a linen napkin. "Your champagne, Miss Chen. We'll be departing shortly." At least he'd checked her name this time. Alex took a sip. It was properly chilled and served in the correct crystal glassware. 1 point back in the plus column. The main cabin passengers were boarding now, creating a steady stream of people walking past first class. Alex noticed Thomas and Sophia positioning themselves at the boundary between cabins, subtly directing economy passengers further back. Another flight attendant, Raj, was helping people stow luggage in the overhead bins. The captain's voice came over the intercom. "Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Captain William Hart welcoming you aboard Skylink Airways Flight 447 to London Heathrow. Our flying time today will be approximately 7 hours and 20 minutes. We're expecting a smooth flight with just some minor turbulence over the Mediterranean. We're currently waiting for final paperwork, and then we'll be on our way. Flight attendants, please prepare for departure." Alex recognized William's name. A veteran pilot with over 25 years of experience, he had an excellent safety record. At least the flight deck crew was top-notch. As the boarding process continued, Alex noticed a commotion several rows back in the business class section. A passenger was arguing with Raj about overhead bin space. Alex couldn't hear the exact words, but the passenger's body language was aggressive, pointing and gesturing emphatically. Raj maintained a calm demeanor, trying to resolve the situation, but Alex could see the strain in his forced smile. Thomas approached the scene, whispered something to Raj, and took over the interaction. Within moments, he had smoothed things over, found space for the passenger's bag, and diffused the tension. Alex made a mental note. Thomas showed good leadership and problem-solving skills. The final passengers trickled aboard, and the cabin door was closed. The safety demonstration began, with Sophia standing at the front of the first-class cabin. Alex watched critically. This was a key safety component, but also a service element that reflected the airline's attention to detail. Sophia's demonstration was rushed. She showed the seatbelt and oxygen mask procedures with mechanical movements, not making eye contact with passengers. Many weren't paying attention anyway, absorbed in their phones or magazines. Alex frowned slightly. Skylink's training emphasized the importance of engaging passengers during safety demonstrations, even frequent flyers who thought they'd seen it all. As the aircraft pushed back from the gate, Alex felt the familiar rumble beneath her feet. Despite her critical mission today, she couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. This was her airline, built from a regional carrier into an international competitor under her leadership. The engines grew louder as they taxied toward the runway. In the galley ahead, Alex could see Thomas and another flight attendant, Diana, securing items for takeoff. They were chatting, and though Alex couldn't hear them over the engine noise, their relaxed posture and occasional laughter suggested they weren't discussing work. Not necessarily a problem, but not the focused professionalism expected during critical phases of flight either. The plane waited briefly in the departure queue, then turned onto the runway. The engines roared as the aircraft accelerated, pressing Alex gently back into her seat. Moments later, they were airborne, climbing steeply away from Dubai's glittering skyline. As they reached cruising altitude, Alex reflected on her observations so far. The boarding process had been efficient, but she'd noted several small service lapses already. Nothing major, but a series of minor details that collectively fell short of Skylink's premium standard. It was exactly these kinds of incremental declines that could explain the drop in customer satisfaction. The seatbelt sign dinged off. Almost immediately, Thomas appeared at her side. "Ms. Chen, may I get you anything while we prepare the meal service? Another champagne, perhaps?" "Water would be fine for now, thank you," Alex replied. "And could you tell me what the meal options are today?" Thomas looked momentarily uncertain. "I believe we have a beef dish and a fish option, and..." He hesitated. "I think there's a vegetarian choice as well. I can confirm the exact menu when I bring your water." Alex nodded, noting his uncertainty. Flight attendants should know the menu options confidently, especially in first class. Another small but telling lapse. As Thomas walked away, Alex discreetly opened her laptop. She had downloaded the service standards document yesterday to reference during the flight. According to the premium class guidelines, flight attendants should introduce themselves by name to each first-class passenger, address passengers by name consistently, offer a personalized welcome aboard, and know the menu options thoroughly before service began. So far, the score wasn't looking great, but the flight had just begun, and the real test would come with the meal service. Alex tucked her laptop away as Thomas returned with her water and a printed menu. "Sorry about that," he said with a genuine smile. "Here are today's options. Our chef has prepared Gulf-spiced lamb, pan-seared sea bass, or roasted vegetable lasagna. Each comes with a starter of Arabic mezzi or smoked salmon." "That sounds lovely," Alex said. "I'll need to check the menu for ingredients, though. I have a special dietary restriction." This was another test. Alex had pre-ordered a gluten-free meal when booking, as many premium passengers with dietary needs did. Thomas looked slightly confused. "I don't see a note about dietary restrictions here. Did you request a special meal when booking?" "Yes, I did," Alex confirmed. "A gluten-free option. Let me check with the galley," Thomas said, looking concerned. "I'll be right back." As he hurried away, Alex made another mental note. The pre-ordered meal situation would be very telling about the airline's attention to detail and commitment to passenger needs. This simple test might reveal exactly where the service chain was breaking down. Thomas returned 5 minutes later, his professional smile strained at the edges. Alex noticed a slight tension in his shoulders that hadn't been there before. "Ms. Chen, I've checked with our catering team. Unfortunately, there seems to have been a mix-up with the special meals for this flight. We don't have your gluten-free meal on board." He paused, looking genuinely apologetic. "I can offer you the vegetable lasagna, but I can't guarantee it's completely gluten-free." "The chef may have used regular pasta." Alex nodded calmly, though internally she was disappointed. This was exactly the kind of service breakdown she'd been hearing about. "I see. That's unfortunate, as I made the request well in advance." "I understand, and I'm truly sorry," Thomas replied. "Let me see what we can put together for you from our other options. Our first-class chef can probably create something suitable." "Thank you, I'd appreciate that," Alex said. As Thomas walked away, Alex pulled out her phone and made a quick note. This wasn't just about her meal, it was about systems working properly. If special meal requests weren't being fulfilled, what other pre-flight preparations were falling through the cracks? Across the aisle, the older gentleman in seat 2D pressed his call button. Sophia appeared quickly at his side. "Yes, Mr. Winters?" "How can I help you?" Sophia asked, her tone noticeably warmer and more attentive than it had been during the safety demonstration. "I ordered a low-sodium meal," the man said gruffly. "Is that going to be a problem too?" "I heard you talking about missing meals." Sophia lowered her voice, but in the quiet cabin Alex could still hear every word. "Not at all, Mr. Winters. We have your special meal reserved. You're one of our platinum members. We always take extra care with your requirements." Alex raised an eyebrow, making another note on her phone. "So special meals were available for some passengers but not others? This wasn't just a catering error, it was preferential treatment." The meal service began about 40 minutes later. The cabin filled with the aroma of freshly prepared food. Diana and Thomas worked efficiently, setting up each passenger's table with crisp white cloths and polished silverware. "Ms. Chen," Thomas said as he approached with a tray, "our chef has prepared a special plate for you. We've removed all items containing gluten, but I want to be transparent. This was prepared in the same galley as other meals, so I can't guarantee there's no cross-contamination." He set down a plate that looked noticeably smaller than the ones being served to other passengers. While others had full 3-course meals, Alex's plate contained some plain chicken, steamed vegetables, and a small side salad. No appetizer, no bread basket, understandably, and no dessert was visible. "I understand," Alex said. "Thank you for trying to accommodate me." As she took a bite of the bland chicken, Alex watched Mr. Winters across the aisle receiving his low-sodium meal. It looked identical to the regular first-class offerings. A beautifully presented appetizer, main course with careful plating, and a dessert waiting on the side. The young influencer-type woman in 4A caught Alex's eye. glancing at her sparse plate with poorly concealed pity. She herself had been served a stunning meal that she'd spent 5 minutes photographing from different angles before taking a single bite. "Excuse me," called a loud voice from the business class section behind them. "I specifically requested a vegetarian meal and this has meat in it." Alex turned slightly, watching as Raj hurried to the upset passenger. The man was gesturing angrily at his food. Alex couldn't see his face clearly, but his designer watch and expensive shirt cuff suggested another premium-tier customer. "I am so sorry, sir," Raj said, immediately removing the plate. "There must have been a mix-up. Let me check if we have any vegetarian meals left." Sophia leaned over to whisper something to Raj, who nodded and hurried to the galley. Less than 3 minutes later, he returned with a completely different meal. "Here you are, Mr. Patel. This is our vegetarian option. We found it. Please accept our apologies for the confusion." Alex narrowed her eyes. So they had found this passenger's special meal, but hers was simply missing. She made another note on her phone, adding details about the time and names involved. The businessman in 1A caught her typing and gave her a knowing look. "First time flying Skylink?" he asked quietly when Thomas was out of earshot. "Not exactly," Alex replied carefully, "but it's been a while." "Have you noticed a change in their service?" He chuckled. "Been flying them monthly for 3 years. Used to be the best in the business, but lately," he shrugged. "Let's just say I'm considering switching to Emirates next quarter." Alex felt a pang at his words. This was exactly what she feared. Loyal customers ready to jump ship. "What's changed in your opinion?" she asked casually. "Little things at first. Special request forgotten. Less attention to detail. But now it's more obvious." He gestured subtly toward the galley where Sophia and Diana were chatting and checking their phones instead of monitoring the cabin. "The crew seems distracted, less professional. Except that Thomas fellow. He's trying his best." Alex nodded, making another mental note to check Thomas's personnel file later. Someone who maintained standards despite the overall decline might be worth promoting once this was all sorted out. As she picked at her inadequate meal, Alex observed more service lapses throughout the cabin. Diana served coffee to the older couple but forgot the cream they requested. Raj mixed up drink orders in the business class section. Sophia spent more time chatting with Mr. Winters than attending to other passengers' needs. When Thomas came to clear her hardly touched plate, he seemed to notice her disappointment. "Was the meal not to your liking, Miss Chen?" "It was fine considering the circumstances," Alex replied diplomatically. "I'm curious, though. I noticed another passenger's special meal request was found after initially being missing. Was mine the only one truly unavailable?" Thomas looked uncomfortable. "Well, He glanced around to make sure no other crew members were in earshot. "To be honest, we had limited special meals loaded. The caterers shorted us again. It's been happening a lot lately. The service director decided to prioritize the highest-tier frequent flyers." "I see," Alex said, keeping her expression neutral despite her growing concern. "And nobody documented this shortage before the flight." "We're supposed to, but with the rushed turnaround in Dubai," Thomas shrugged apologetically. "The paperwork sometimes gets missed. I really am sorry about your meal." "It's not your fault," Alex said, genuinely meaning it. This seemed like a systemic problem, not an individual failing. After the meal service, most passengers settled in to watch movies or sleep. Alex reclined her seat slightly but remained alert, continuing her observations. In the dimmed cabin, she noticed Sophia and Diana disappear into the rear galley together for over 20 minutes. When they returned, Diana's eyes were reddened, and Sophia looked tense. Using the plane's Wi-Fi, Alex sent an encrypted email to her executive assistant. "Priya, need crew files for SL447 DXBLHR today. Full service records, performance reviews, customer feedback. Priority urgent." The response came back almost immediately. "On it. Sensitive materials will be in your secure folder within the hour. Everything okay?" Alex typed back, "Not really. Quality issues worse than reported. We'll brief you after landing." Closing her email, Alex noticed the businessman from 1A watching her with curiosity. She gave him a polite nod and then pretended to be interested in the movie selection. As if sensing her discontent, Thomas appeared with a glass of water she hadn't requested. "Ms. Chen, I wanted to offer you our premium chocolate selection since you didn't get a proper dessert earlier." He presented a small box of high-end chocolates. "They're all gluten-free, I double-checked." The gesture was thoughtful, and Alex thanked him sincerely. This kind of initiative, anticipating a passenger's needs and finding creative solutions, was exactly what Skylink's service model called for. Thomas at least seemed to understand the standard, even if others didn't. Halfway through the flight, a call light came on in business class. Alex watched as Raj, who was nearest, pretended not to notice it for nearly 3 minutes before finally responding. From her angle, she could just see the passenger asking for something, and Raj shaking his head no. The passenger looked frustrated but resigned. Alex made another note. Without context, she couldn't know if the passenger's request was reasonable. But the delayed response time was definitely a service failure. In the galley ahead, she could hear Sophia and Diana talking in low voices. Their conversation drifted back in fragments. Told you the inventory was wrong. Not my fault if catering doesn't load enough. Who cares? They're all asleep anyway. Just 3 more hours and we're done. Alex frowned. This casual attitude about service standards was concerning. Skylink's motto was excellence in every interaction, not good enough until landing. She pulled out her tablet and accessed the secure company folder that Priya had updated. The crew files showed a pattern. Recent negative feedback for this particular team. Multiple catering discrepancies reported, but no corrective action taken, and several passenger complaints about preferential treatment based on status level. Most troubling was a safety report that had been filed but apparently ignored. 3 weeks ago, a junior flight attendant had reported that pre-flight safety checks were being rushed or pencil whipped on this route. That flight attendant had subsequently been reassigned to a less desirable schedule. Alex felt her CEO instincts kicking in. This wasn't just poor servicing. It was a cultural problem that could ultimately affect safety. And it appeared to be concentrated on specific routes with certain crew combinations. As she continued reading the files, Thomas approached once more. Ms. Chen will be serving a light meal before landing at Heathrow. I've asked our chef to prepare something specially for you this time. No last-minute surprises. Thank you, Thomas. I appreciate your attentiveness, Alex replied, genuinely impressed by his consistent effort despite the atmosphere among the crew. Just doing my job, he said with a smile that reached his eyes. If there's anything else you need before landing, please don't hesitate to ask. As Thomas walked away, Alex made a final note on her tablet. Cultural reset needed. Service director accountability. Safety concerns priority. Identify and retain quality team members. The flight was more than halfway to London now. Alex closed her eyes, not to sleep but to think. By the time they landed, she would have a plan ready. This wasn't about a missed meal anymore. It was about saving the airline she had built. 3 hours remained in the flight to London. The cabin lights had been dimmed to a soft blue glow, creating an artificial night sky. Most passengers were either sleeping or absorbed in their entertainment screens. Alex, however, remained wide awake, her CEO instincts fully engaged. She decided to take a walk through the entire aircraft. Standing up and stretching casually, she made her way toward the back of the plane. This wasn't unusual behavior for a restless passenger, but Alex had specific things she wanted to see. As she passed through business class, she noted several empty water glasses that hadn't been collected. A passenger was reading with his overhead light, but the bulb was flickering annoyingly. Nobody had offered to help him. Small details, but telling ones. In the mid-cabin galley, she found Raj and another flight attendant named Lynn, huddled around a phone, laughing at something on the screen. They quickly straightened up when they noticed her. "Can I help you?" Lynn asked, hastily putting the phone away. "Just stretching my legs," Alex replied with a friendly smile. "Long flight, of course. Let us know if you need anything," Raj said professionally, though Alex noted he didn't offer her a drink or any other courtesy, typically extended to wandering premium passengers. She continued into the economy section, where most passengers were sleeping. Here she noticed something concerning. Several seatbelt signs were illuminated above sleeping passengers, indicating the crew hadn't done a proper check after the meal service. This was a safety issue, not just a service one. At the rear galley, Alex found no flight attendants present at all. The area was unattended, with meal trays stacked haphazardly and an open bottle of wine sitting on the counter. She lingered for nearly 2 minutes before anyone appeared. A young flight attendant named Miguel hurried in, looking surprised to find a passenger there, "Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. Did you need something?" he asked. "Just walking around," Alex said casually. "Been sitting too long?" Miguel nodded but looked nervous. "You should probably return to your seat soon. We, prefer passengers don't spend too much time in the galleys." Alex nodded understandingly. "Of course. Where were all of you, by the way? I didn't see any flight attendants in the cabin." Miguel hesitated. "Crew rest break. We rotate, so there's always someone available." But Alex knew the protocol. Even during break rotations, galleys were never supposed to be completely unattended, and at least 2 flight attendants should have been visible in the cabin at all times. "I see," she said simply, not wanting to reveal her knowledge. "I'll head back now." As she walked forward again, Alex observed more closely. The cabin looked tired. Scuff marks on walls that should have been reported for maintenance, a lavatory with an out-of-order sign that hadn't been mentioned during boarding, and a distinct lack of the cabin refresh that should happen midway through long flights. Back in first class, Alex found Thomas arranging breakfast trays in preparation for the pre-landing meal. She noticed he was the only one working while Diana was napping in a jump seat, though it clearly wasn't her designated break time. "Everything all right, Ms. Chen?" Thomas asked, noticing her return. "Yes, fine, thank you," Alex replied. "Just needed to move around a bit." She settled back into her seat, making more notes on her tablet. The issues were widespread. Not just her meal, not just 1 or 2 lazy crew members, but a systematic breakdown in standards. Over the next hour, Alex observed more telling details. When a light turbulence hit, Sophia made the required cabin check but did it so quickly that she couldn't possibly have verified all seatbelts. The businessman in 1A requested a specific brand of whiskey that was advertised on Skylink's premium menu. Diana first claimed they were out, then found a bottle after he mentioned his platinum status. Thomas prepared special hot towels for the first-class passengers, but was told by the service director to not bother with business class. "Just give them the packaged wipes," Alex overheard her say. "Nobody will complain." Most troubling was a conversation Alex overheard between Sophia and the purser, Pavel, near the forward galley. "Did you complete the inventory check?" Pavel asked quietly. "I'll fill it out before landing," Sophia replied with a dismissive wave. "Same numbers as always." "But we're definitely short on the champagne," Pavel insisted. "And the duty-free items?" "Just put what we're supposed to have," Sophia said firmly. "Do you want to explain the missing stock?" "Again?" Alex felt a chill. This sounded suspiciously like falsifying inventory records, possibly to cover theft. She made another detailed note, including the exact time and wording of the conversation. The captain's voice came over the intercom, announcing they were 2 hours from London and expecting some weather during their approach. "Cabin crew, prepare for pre-landing service," he concluded. This set off a flurry of activity that was notably more energetic than anything Alex had seen since the initial boarding. Suddenly, the crew was all business, as if aware that passenger impressions during the final service often shaped overall flight reviews. Thomas appeared at her side. "Ms. Chen, would you like coffee or tea with your breakfast?" "Coffee, please." "Black," Alex replied. "And I've made sure your breakfast is gluten-free," Thomas added. "Our chef prepared a special fruit plate and yogurt for you, and there's gluten-free bread as well." Alex thanked him, genuinely appreciative of his consistent effort throughout the flight. As promised, her breakfast arrived looking much more appealing than her dinner had been. Thomas had even added a fresh orchid to her tray, a small touch that showed real attention to detail. As she ate, Alex reviewed all her notes and the crew files on her tablet. A pattern was emerging. The service director, Sophia, appeared to be at the center of many issues. Her personnel file showed she had been with Skylink for 15 years and had once been an exemplary employee with multiple commendations. But in the past year, her performance reviews had slipped, with notes about complacency and inconsistent standards. More concerning were the multiple inventory discrepancies on flights she supervised, all explained away with various excuses. Nothing had ever been proven, but the pattern was suspicious. Alex also noticed that Thomas had only been with the airline for 8 months. His training evaluations were excellent, but he'd already requested 2 transfers from Sophia's regular crew. Both had been denied due to staffing limitations. A notification popped up on Alex's tablet, a secure message from her CFO, David. Per your request, I've pulled the customer satisfaction data for routes with Service Director Sophia Wang versus our fleet average. Her routes are consistently 22% below average for the past 6 months. Catering costs are also 18% lower on her flights despite identical menu offerings. Something doesn't add up. Need more info? Alex typed back a quick reply. Keep digging. Check inventory variances and crew scheduling patterns. Full report when I land. Looking up, she noticed the young influencer-type woman taking photos of her breakfast with her phone. The woman caught Alex's eye and smiled apologetically. Sorry, I must seem silly, she said. I'm a travel blogger. Skylink used to be my favorite airline to recommend, but lately, she trailed off, shrugging. What changed? Alex asked, genuinely curious about this passenger's perspective. Little things mostly. The food isn't as good. The service feels rushed. And last month they lost my luggage and took 5 days to find it. She sighed. My followers trust my recommendations, you know. I can't keep praising an airline that's clearly cutting corners. Alex nodded thoughtfully. I understand. That must be disappointing. It is. I've flown over 300,000 miles with them. The woman leaned closer and lowered her voice. Between us, I think something's going on with the management. Good companies don't just fall apart like this without a reason. If only she knew who she was talking to, Alex thought. I'm sure they'd want to know about your experience, she said carefully. Oh, I've filled out those comment cards. They probably go straight to the trash, the blogger said with a laugh. Unless you know the CEO personally? Alex smiled slightly. Not personally, no. As the breakfast service concluded, the captain announced their initial descent into London. The crew began preparing the cabin, and Alex observed one final, telling detail, Sophia instructing the team to just hit the highlights of the pre-landing safety checks. We're already behind schedule, Alex overheard her say. Just make it look good for the passengers who are watching. That was the final straw. Safety procedures were never optional, never just for show. They were the foundation everything else was built upon. Alex sent one more message before the final descent, this one to her head of operations. Vivian, need security team at arrival gate for SL447 at Heathrow. Discreet but immediate. Full crew needs to be held for questioning. I'll explain on landing. This is priority 1. The reply came back almost instantly. Understood. Security will be standing by. Gate changed to B87 for privacy. Alex put her tablet away and prepared for landing. Her mind was made up now. This wasn't about a denied meal anymore. That had just been the thread that, when pulled, revealed a much larger unraveling. This was about the safety of passengers, the integrity of the airline, and the standards she had personally worked so hard to establish. As the plane began its final approach to Heathrow, rain streaking across the windows, Alex Chen made her decision. The crew of flight SL447 had no idea that their routine Tuesday flight was about to become the catalyst for the biggest shakeup in Skylink's history. The wheels of the aircraft touched down at Heathrow with a gentle bump. Rain pattered against the windows as they taxied toward the terminal. Outside, the London sky was a canvas of gray clouds, matching the mood Alex felt settling over her. She didn't enjoy what she was about to do, but she knew it was necessary. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to London Heathrow Airport, the captain's voice announced. Local time is 2:17 p.m. and the temperature is a cool 14 degrees Celsius. We'll be taxiing to gate B87, which is a bit of a change from our usual arrival gate. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened until the aircraft has come to a complete stop and the seatbelt sign has been turned off. Alex noticed the slight confusion in the captain's voice at the gate change. He hadn't been informed of the real reason. As the plane approached the gate, Alex could see through the window that something was different. Instead of the usual ground crew, there were several people in Skylink corporate uniforms waiting by the jet bridge. She recognized Vivian, her head of operations, and Keith from corporate security. The plane came to a stop. The seatbelt sign dinged off and passengers immediately began standing, retrieving items from overhead bins and forming the usual impatient queue in the aisles. Ladies and gentlemen, came Sophia's voice over the intercom. Thank you for flying with Skylink Airways today. We hope you enjoyed your flight and look forward to seeing you on board again soon. The standard announcement continued as Alex remained seated, watching the crew's movements. They seemed eager to complete their duties and disembark. A normal feeling after a long flight, but today it struck Alex as particularly telling. Thomas approached her seat. May I help you with your bag, Ms. Chen? No, thank you, Thomas. I'll wait until the crowd thins out, she replied with a smile. He nodded politely. It was a pleasure serving you today. I hope the rest of your trip goes smoothly. Actually, Alex said, I wonder if you could do me a favor. Of course, Thomas replied, looking slightly curious. When all the passengers have disembarked, could you ask the entire crew to remain on board for a few minutes? There's something I need to discuss with all of you. Thomas looked puzzled. I'm sorry, but passengers aren't allowed to. Alex gently interrupted him. I understand, but in this case, I think an exception will be made. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small leather folder, opening it to reveal her CEO identification badge with her full name and title clearly displayed. Thomas's eyes widened. Yes, Alex said quietly, and I'd appreciate your discretion for the next few minutes while the other passengers depart. The color drained from Thomas's face, but he nodded quickly. Of course, Ms. Chen, I'll let the others know we need to stay on board. Thank you, Alex said warmly. And Thomas, you personally have nothing to worry about. Relief flashed across his face before he moved away, his posture noticeably tenser than before. Alex watched as he whispered something to Diana, whose eyes immediately darted in Alex's direction with naked panic. The business class passengers filed out, followed by those in economy. Alex remained in her seat, reviewing her notes one final time and sending a brief message to the waiting team outside. Boarding in 5. Have full crew records ready. Finally, the last passenger disappeared down the jet bridge. The cabin was suddenly quiet, with only the background hum of the aircraft's systems. Alex stood up, gathered her belongings, and walked to the front of the first-class cabin where the crew had assembled, looking confused and anxious. What's this about? Sophia was asking Pavel in a harsh whisper. Why can't we disembark? I believe I can answer that, Alex said, stepping forward. The entire crew turned to look at her. Most wore expressions of confusion, but Thomas, Diana, and Sophia showed varying degrees of recognition and alarm. My name is Alexandra Chen. I'm the CEO of Skylink Airways. A collective gasp went through the group. Pavel's clipboard clattered to the floor. Sophia's face went pale. But you were just a passenger, Lynn said, looking bewildered. Yes, I was, Alex confirmed. I booked myself on this flight as a regular passenger to experience our service firsthand. And I have to say, what I observed today has left me deeply concerned. The crew exchanged nervous glances. Captain Hart, who had emerged from the cockpit, stepped forward. Ms. Chen, I had no idea you were on board. If we'd known... That's precisely the point, Captain, Alex interrupted gently. If you'd known, I wouldn't have seen the reality of what our passengers experience. She turned to address the entire crew. I'm not here to embarrass anyone or make accusations without evidence. I'm here because Skylink's standards have been declining, and I needed to understand why. Alex pulled out her tablet. Over the past 7 hours, I've documented numerous service failures, policy violations, and most concerningly, safety issues. She began listing them one by one. The missed special meal that was magically found for a platinum member, the rushed safety checks, the inventory discrepancies, the unattended galleys, the preferential treatment, the falsified records. This isn't about a CEO being denied a proper meal, Alex said firmly, though that was certainly a symptom of the larger problem. This is about a systematic breakdown in our standards that puts our passengers' experience and safety at risk. Sophia stepped forward, her composure somewhat recovered. Ms. Chen, I think there's been a misunderstanding. We were short-staffed today, and I've already reviewed the crew manifest, Alex cut in. You had a full complement, and these issues aren't isolated to today's flight. She turned her tablet around to show a graph. Customer satisfaction on routes under your supervision has dropped 22% in 6 months. Inventory discrepancies occur 3 times more frequently on your flights than any others. Sophia fell silent, her excuse dying on her lips. Captain Hart, Alex continued, turning to the pilot, were you aware that pre-flight safety checks were being rushed? The captain looked genuinely shocked. Absolutely not. I rely on the cabin crew's confirmation that all safety procedures have been completed properly. Alex nodded, having suspected as much. And were you informed about the catering shortages before takeoff? No, he said firmly. That should have been brought to my attention immediately. Alex turned back to the cabin crew. This is what concerns me most. Not just the service failures, but the breakdown in communication, the covering up of problems rather than addressing them, and the willingness to compromise on safety to save time or avoid difficult conversations. The crew stood in uncomfortable silence. Some looked ashamed, others defensive. Thomas alone maintained direct eye contact with Alex, his expression concerned but clear-eyed. "What happens now?" Pavel finally asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Now we walk off this plane together and you'll all meet with our operations team in the staff room," Alex replied. "Each of you will be interviewed separately about what happened today and about the patterns of behavior I've observed." She looked at each crew member in turn. "I want to be very clear. Skylink is not just about luxury or comfort. It's about trust. Our passengers trust us with their safety, their time, their money, and their comfort. Today, on multiple levels, that trust was broken." Alex paused, letting her words sink in. "I didn't board this flight looking to fire anyone. I boarded it hoping to understand a problem and find a solution, but what I've seen requires immediate action." She gestured toward the door, where Vivian and the security team waited. "Please gather your personal belongings and follow me. Your cooperation during the investigation will be noted and considered." As the crew began collecting their things in somber silence, Thomas approached Alex cautiously. "Ms. Chen," he said quietly, "I want you to know that I've tried to maintain the standards. I've filed reports about these issues, but they never seem to go anywhere." Alex nodded. "I know, Thomas. I saw your transfer requests in the system. I also saw how you consistently tried to provide proper service today, despite the atmosphere around you. That won't be forgotten." Relief washed over his face. "Thank you." One by one, the crew members filed off the aircraft. Alex noticed Sophia whispering frantically to Diana and Pavel, likely coordinating their stories before the interviews. It wouldn't help them. The evidence was too clear. Captain Hart was the last to leave before Alex. He paused at the door, looking deeply troubled. "Ms. Chen, I want to apologize. The flight deck crew bears ultimate responsibility for every aspect of the flight, including cabin service. I should have been more aware." "You're right, Captain," Alex said, not unkindly. "You should have been. But the system that was supposed to bring these issues to your attention failed as well. That's why this isn't about any one person. It's about a culture that needs to change." As they walked down the jet bridge together, Alex felt a complex mix of emotions. There was disappointment at what she'd discovered, determination to fix the broken systems, and even a certain sadness for the crew members whose careers might end today. But overriding it all was her responsibility to the thousands of passengers who flew Skylink every day, trusting the airline with their comfort and safety. Waiting in the terminal was a larger team now. Her CFO, David, the HR director, Priya, and several members of the airline's quality assurance team. Their faces showed they understood the seriousness of the situation. "Conference room is ready," Vivian reported. "Security has cleared the area and we've got individual interview rooms set up as requested." "Thank you," Alex said. She watched as the crew was escorted away by security personnel, their faces a mix of fear, defiance, and resignation. "Was it as bad as you thought?" David asked quietly. "Worse," Alex replied. "But now we know, and now we can fix it." As she walked toward the conference room where a long day of interviews awaited, Alex Chen felt the weight of her position more keenly than ever. Being CEO wasn't about luxury offices or power. It was about maintaining standards even when that meant making difficult decisions. It was about ensuring that a denied meal wasn't just a denied meal. It was a warning sign that demanded attention, and she had been paying attention. The next 72 hours passed in a blur of meetings, interviews, and difficult decisions. Alex barely left Skylink's London headquarters, catching a few hours of sleep on the office sofa when exhaustion demanded it. Now, 3 days after that revealing flight, she stood at the window of the conference room, looking out at the rain-washed tarmac where planes bearing the Skylink logo took off and landed with clockwork precision. "Final report is ready," Vivian said, placing a tablet on the conference table. "You were right about everything." Alex turned from the window. Around the table sat her core team: Vivian, David, Priya, and Keith from security. Their faces showed the same mixture of disappointment and resolve that Alex felt. "Walk me through it," Alex said, taking her seat at the head of the table. David tapped the screen, bringing up a series of charts. The investigation confirmed systemic issues on routes managed by Service Director Sophia Wang. Inventory shrinkage averaging 15% per flight. Falsified safety checks on 23 documented occasions. Preferential treatment for high-status passengers at the expense of others. And a pattern of intimidation toward staff who tried to maintain proper standards. The interviews were particularly revealing. Priya added. 8 crew members, including Thomas, had previously reported concerns through proper channels. Each report mysteriously disappeared or was downgraded in importance. How far up did the problem go? Alex asked. Keith cleared his throat. We've traced it to Regional Service Manager Philip Gordon. He was protecting Sophia and several other service directors who were cutting corners to improve on-paper performance metrics. They made flights appear more profitable by reducing catering costs, minimizing time spent on proper procedures, and focusing resources only on the most visible high-status passengers. Alex shook her head, anger and sadness mingling inside her. They were gaming the very metrics we created to ensure quality. Exactly, Vivian confirmed. They found ways to hit the numbers without delivering the actual service. Philip was rewarded with bonuses for his region's efficiency 3 quarters in a row. And the missing inventory? Alex asked, though she already suspected the answer. Keith's expression hardened. We've confirmed that premium items, expensive alcohol, amenity kit products, even some duty-free goods, were being systematically removed from flights. Conservative estimate puts the total value at over $175,000 across the past year. A heavy silence fell over the room. These weren't just service failures. They were potentially criminal acts. What actions have been taken so far? Alex asked. Priya consulted her notes. Sophia Wang, Pavel Ivanov, and Diana Chen have been terminated for gross misconduct. Philip Gordon has been suspended pending further investigation. We've placed 4 other service directors from the same management chain on administrative leave while we audit their flights. And the others from the flight? Alex asked, thinking particularly of Thomas. Most are on temporary suspension with pay while we complete individual reviews, Priya explained. Though based on preliminary interviews, we expect many will return to duty after additional training. They were caught in a toxic culture but weren't the primary drivers of it. And Thomas Wu? A small smile crossed Priya's face. Actually, we'd like to recommend him for promotion. His personnel file shows consistent attempts to maintain standards despite pressure from above. Multiple passengers from your flight specifically mentioned him in positive feedback. He could be valuable in rebuilding the right culture. Alex nodded, pleased. She had sensed Thomas's integrity during the flight. What about Captain Hart and the flight deck crew? She asked. Their situation is more complex, Vivian replied. They weren't directly involved in the misconduct, but they failed to provide adequate oversight. We're recommending additional training and a 6-month probationary period, with emphasis on their responsibility to ensure all aspects of flight operations meet standards. And the criminal aspects? Alex turned to Keith. We've prepared documentation for the authorities, he said. It's your call whether we proceed with charges against Sophia and Philip. Alex sighed. This was the most difficult decision. Let me think about that one. What about immediate changes to prevent this from happening again? David tapped his tablet, bringing up a new document. We've drafted a comprehensive plan. Key elements include restructuring the reporting system so concerns can't be buried, implementing random quality audits by undercover evaluators, revising performance metrics to capture actual service quality rather than just efficiency, and a complete retraining program for all cabin crew on our core standards. We also recommend creating a direct whistleblower line that bypasses the normal chain of command, Priya added. If Thomas had been able to report directly to senior leadership, this situation might have been caught much earlier. Alex absorbed all this information, her mind already moving to the next steps. How do we communicate this to our employees? To the public? That's where timing becomes crucial, David said. If we announce major changes without context, it could create panic about the airline's stability. But if we say nothing, rumors will fill the vacuum. Alex stood up and began pacing, her thoughts crystallizing into a plan. Here's what we're going to do. First, I want a company-wide town hall meeting. Virtual so everyone can attend regardless of location. I'll personally explain what happened, what we've learned, and how we're going to fix it. The team nodded in agreement. Second, we issue a press statement acknowledging that we've discovered service inconsistencies and are taking proactive steps to address them. We don't detail the criminal aspects yet. That waits until we've decided about pressing charges. And third, Alex continued, I want to fly commercial again next week, but this time openly as CEO. I'll visit our main hubs, meet with crew members, and show them that these changes aren't just words on paper. They need to see that leadership is serious about rebuilding our culture. That's a lot to take on personally, Vivian observed with concern. It needs to come from the top, Alex replied firmly. Our people need to see that I'm not just sitting in an office making decisions about their jobs without understanding their reality. The meeting continued for another hour as they refined the plan, assigned responsibilities, and set a timeline for implementation. When they finally adjourned, Alex felt the first glimmer of optimism since discovering the problems on Flight SL447. 2 weeks later, Alex stood before a group of newly trained cabin crew members at Skylink's London Training Center. The room was packed with people standing along the walls to hear her speak. The story has been floating around, Alex said with a rueful smile, that I fired an entire flight crew because I was denied a premium meal. I'd like to set the record straight. A nervous laugh rippled through the audience. What really happened was that I witnessed a culture that had lost its way, she continued. A culture where cutting corners had become acceptable, where meeting the numbers mattered more than serving our passengers, and where people who tried to maintain standards were pushed aside. She paced across the front of the room, making eye contact with as many people as possible. That meal was just a symptom of a much deeper problem, and my response wasn't to fire everyone in sight. It was to identify those responsible for creating that toxic environment and to support those who had been trying to do right despite the pressure to do otherwise. In the front row sat Thomas, now wearing the uniform of a service trainer. Beside him were several other crew members from Flight SL447 who had completed retraining and been cleared to return to duty. The past month has been challenging for all of us, Alex acknowledged. Change always is. But I'm seeing something remarkable happening already. A renewal of the spirit that made Skylink special in the first place. She gestured to a screen behind her, which displayed the latest customer satisfaction scores. They had already begun to climb. This isn't just about premium meals or whether the CEO gets special treatment, Alex said. It's about every passenger on every flight receiving the safety, comfort, and respect they deserve. It's about all of you having the support and resources you need to deliver that experience. After the formal presentation, Alex stayed to talk with crew members individually. Their questions were candid, their concerns genuine, and their commitment palpable. This, Alex thought, was how healing began, with honest conversations and a shared vision for the future. Later that evening, Alex boarded a Skylink flight to New York. This time she flew as herself, greeting the crew openly and sitting in her usual seat in first class. The service was impeccable, not because they knew who she was, but because the standards had been restored. As the flight reached cruising altitude, the lead flight attendant approached with the dinner menu. Ms. Chen, we have your pre-ordered gluten-free meal confirmed, she said with a warm, professional smile. Is there anything else I can help you with? Everything is perfect, thank you, Alex replied, and as she looked around the cabin, seeing crew members attending to passengers with genuine care, checking safety equipment thoroughly, and working together seamlessly, Alex knew it was true. Not perfect in the sense of flawless. Airlines, like all human enterprises, would always have challenges to overcome. But perfect in its intention, its effort, and its renewed commitment to the values that mattered. The meal that arrived was beautifully presented, properly prepared, and served with pride. But Alex knew that it represented something far more significant than food. It represented a promise kept, a standard maintained, and a culture reborn. In the end, the story wasn't about a CEO firing a flight crew over a denied meal. It was about a leader who saw a problem, faced it directly, and worked with her team to make things right. Not with a single dramatic gesture, but with the harder, more meaningful work of rebuilding what had been lost. One flight, one crew, and one meal at a time.